I'm going to give a couple of seconds. I know we are live, and just going to wait a couple seconds to see if anybody joins us. It is Tuesday evening chat, 6:30. Hey, I'm here to talk about something that I posted, I think it was this week, or was it last week? Anyways, I'm going to wait a couple of more seconds and then I will get on with it. I had some really great chat feedback for some other topics, which I will definitely do that in the coming weeks. So some of them are a little bit more extensive, but I definitely can talk to them. Hey Heinrich, how are you? I hope you're feeling good. Anyway, so I am here to talk about doorways. I had asked a question about what happens when you open your front door. Some people thought I meant coming for you to go in your house, and which is fine. That's awesome. I got some extra feedback, so that's perfect. And I was specifically looking to see what happens with your dogs when you open the front door when you're inside. So that's what I was going to cover today. I would like to keep these chats to a half hour. I don't want to bore everybody, but hey. So I am Sylvia Kozerzak, that's a mouthful, and I own and operate Walkabout Canine Consulting and have for many years. So I love helping owners to achieve success with their dogs, and so that they can live in harmony and have a great relationship. So I practice the science of positive reinforcement training, and I think it is the best way to teach our animals. Where is your doggy? Liam? They're pooped. They were running around the pool. Let's see. Here he comes. He's always willing and able. Come here. Come here. Oh, there we go. Somebody wants to see you. I know. He's wondering, what the heck am I doing? So this is Liam. He says he doesn't. I got some lip balm on my lips. It doesn't taste it shouldn't be bad. It's coconut. Yeah. So this is one of my doggies, Liam. He's a border terrier, and he keeps me on my toes. Yeah. So not a border collie, a border terrier, which some people aren't too familiar with. They're slowly getting more popular. They are a little more high drive. And then Emma, I don't know where she is. She's lying down somewhere. So like I say, they're being pretty quiet. Because they were running around the pool, which always poops them out. I usually get Liam swimming a little bit more than Emma's a Karen, so she has shorter legs. She'll jump in when it's really hot, but she likes to run around the pool and play with her game. So thank you, Heinrich. Yeah, they are. All dogs are adorable, really. So I did want to talk to you in regards to boundaries and doorways. So a lot of times owners are really concerned about how do I stop my dog from running out? And that's a great question. So I always like to turn the tables around and look at it from another point of view instead of stopping. What can we get our dogs to do instead? So I love teaching boundaries, mat training. I don't care what you call it. It's mat training. Some trainers call it mat training. Some trainers call it boundary training. Stations is another word that's used, and especially extrapolated just from even animal training, exotic training. And basically what that means is you teach your animal to gravitate to a spot and they think it is the best thing in the whole world. And that is a great thing to teach your dog. My dogs know boundaries very well. We have them all over the house. I transfer them outside. And when you think outside, so we have boundaries outside, and when I'm working on specific exercises, I actually manipulate the boundaries because I have 2 dogs, and I can put one away, but they actually do mostly, it depends. Sometimes I have to freshen up their skills, but I can get them to wait on their boundary, and it becomes a really positive because they know that the boundary means they get their next turn. But going back to doorways is this is a great way to transfer any kind of mat training that you do have. It doesn't need to only be your dog's bed. It can be many boundaries. They can look different. My dogs understand a dog cot. If you've never seen some of the raised beds, they know dog beds. They know mats. I use mats in some locations, so I typically use that around my kitchen area. So they gravitate to those spots instead of coming into the kitchen, which is pretty small, and when you're dealing with, you know, cooking and hot stuff, it's a safe space for them to be. And essentially what I do is generalize it to many spots. I use mutt mats, and we have mats at the front door. I have a mat at the top of the stairs, so I can use that spot, or we have mats at the bottom of we have a little bit of a landing, so you walk into our house, there's a landing, and then there's like 5 or 6 stairs to the main floor, or 5 or 6 stairs to the basement. And I have done a lot of mat training there. Liam I use it especially for him because he is a little bit more active. So I teach them that the mats in that area are super cool, and that if they stand on them or wait on them, good things are going to happen, which means they get treats. So I essentially use treats to get the behavior started, and I grow it with treats. And as well, anytime my dogs get a bully stick, a bone, a topple, which is a foraging toy, just different than a Kong, it's different shape, anything like that, they always get delivered to their stations or boundaries or dog beds, so that's where they have learned that that is a really cool place to be. And that is how we can use the stations for safety. When you're working around the doorways, and you're not going to open the door right away, your goal is to be able to slowly move away from your dog while they're on the mat and towards the door. But we do need it to be done in extremely small steps. And often owners, you know, they start walking away several feet, and which can be hard for some dogs. So, you know, breaking it down into tinier pieces is really helpful. And then slowly getting to the point where you can open the door. So what I'm going to be doing is August 6th, which is a Saturday, and I am going to do a webinar. I was going to charge for it, but I've decided to host it free. And I'm going to work with a very green dog. You may have heard me mention Eve, who I did use in, I actually did a 3-week online virtual class for leash walking, and I used Eve. She is a friend's dog. She is a breeder. And she's very green. I had trained her when she was about 4 months old, because Eve and a couple of other pups were in a commercial, so I helped work on the commercial as well as train them. In any event, Eve really hasn't had any training. She's not a house dog, so she is a breeder's dog, so she does hang out in the kennels. So she's pretty green for some stuff, but she is a pretty smart girl. And what I'm going to do is work with her and show you how I teach a dog, a green dog. So she will be green. She's an adolescent, so she is, so she's just over a year old. I'm just trying to think. So still pretty green. And then I will also be using Hope, which is another one of my friend's dogs. And just in comparison, so Hope is a dog that I have done quite a bit of work with when she was a puppy. I worked a lot with her from puppyhood up until adolescence. So she did catch on to boundaries. She loved boundaries. And you'll see the picture I have in the promo, which I will post, actually a link right here. So this is the registration. It says $20 on there. I don't know why it does that. I did remove it. But anyways, the picture in there, that is Hope on her boundary. It's a small boundary, but still, she does know it well. I have done a little bit of door work. So I'm going to be working live. It's a 2-hour, and it will give you an opportunity to watch how I train it. Is it going to be trained in that 2 hours? No, not necessarily. It is something that you do want to practice daily, and you keep your sessions short when you're training, and you just do multiple sessions, and that's how you get success. So obviously in a webinar, I'm going to be pushing the dogs a little bit longer than I would recommend to training sessions, but that's just what it is when we're doing a training class or a webinar. So I thought it would be a great opportunity for some of you just to see what can be accomplished and how you can keep your dogs safe, because running through doorways is scary. Even if you live on a quiet street, there's still cars. Like the street we live on, it's a residential street, but it can still be busy. And sometimes there's people that are driving faster than they really should. And we want to keep our dogs safe. And so I am going to be working at a front door, and what as your dog becomes experienced, this is something that you can start transferring to other doorways, so that they learn that all doorways don't mean that when they're open they just bolt through. And I will be using, hey Anita, thanks for coming. So we're going to be using lots of reinforcement. And that really is how behavior is built. Reinforcement builds behavior. That's just the way it is. That's the science of reinforcement. And we want our dogs to really want to love their stations and want to be on their stations. And if you have other animals, you can practice this as well. I've done this with other species. I've done it with 2 ponies at one time while I was trying to desensitize a not shy, a pony who didn't really want to be approached anymore because she finally had her freedom. And then because there was another pony there who liked to be pushy, I simply used the station to keep him in his spot, and I could work with them simultaneously. And that is what I do with my two dogs, but we won't be doing that on in the webinar. Maybe, I'm not sure. So like I say, I will be working hands-on. It won't be perfect because training can sometimes be messy depending on the dog and the environment around me. So my friend, the breeder friend, will probably be there, and sometimes there's a little bit of distraction with other things that are going on, but hey, that's just how training goes sometimes. So that is what I have planned. So I would love for you to join me. It's like I say, 2 hours, just so that we can take our time, give a bit of a break, and we could have just if there's any questions in between. So it's from 2 till 4 Eastern Standard Time on August 6th, if if the universe aligns with everything going well. So so that's what we're going to work on. So I did want to discuss that because I had asked a question, and it will be a really good opportunity for you to see how that's done. Breaking things into really small pieces, which is great for the beginning stages of training. Now, I had quite a few people, and nobody's on here, so I'm guessing that their plan is for replay because I don't see anybody else. So when I schedule the chat, it opens up a Facebook discussion, which is cool. And I had several people asking for topics. So I'm going to do them as the weeks progress. So we did have a question about separation anxiety. In other words, after I close the door. That's quite an extensive topic, but I will touch on it in short. So that's not separation anxiety isn't something that you work on. Hi, Kelly. That's not typically a tip type of thing, but I will talk briefly about that. I also had a question about harnesses and collars that I recommend to correct pulling. Again, what I like to do is how about we look at it from a different way, and how can we teach our dogs to want to give us a loose leash. So I can talk briefly about that. Like I said, I did do the webinar in, I think it was June. It was a 3-week webinar. It was really reasonable, so if you wanted to purchase it, you still can. I think it was only like $15 or $20. It was a 3-week process. I did have a Facebook group that went along with that, and I shared my secret sauce and how to work on loose leash skills, and I actually used Eve, who essentially had no prior training for leash walking, so I worked with her there. So we also had some questions about excessive barking, so I will talk about that. So these will be some upcoming topics over the next several weeks. So I love that you guys gave me that feedback in regards to what you want to see me chat about. So and we had somebody also mention Prey Drive. I can't remember who exactly asked for which topic, which it doesn't matter. They're all great topics. And I can extrapolate on that. And whoever has asked about the prey drive, if you're on and giving me feedback, that is awesome as well. So those are some of the topics that I'm going to go over the next chats. And if there's anything tonight in regards to questions about the boundaries and doorway training, I know there were some people did mention that their dogs do bolt through the door, which isn't what you want. So we want our dogs to want to stay inside the door with us. And like I say, working on the boundaries is the easiest way to actually train it. So because it becomes a focal spot, and that is what we can reinforce. So anybody else have any questions? Kelly, what was it that you asked about on the chat? I can't pull up the chat from here, or can I? I don't know if I can. Don't think I can. Yeah, so, but those are the upcoming topics. I'll just go in order, and I will touch briefly on the separation anxiety and what we have to look at. I can't give exact biting hands. Okay, so biting hands in regards to are you the one that asked and I gave you suggestions for the play with your adolescent dog? Play, yeah. So I did give you some suggestions that usually work. If your dog is biting hands, you need to look at, is this a behavior that your young dog has learned, is how to play with you. So if they think that you're going to play with your hands, if you're pushing them away, that might be another reason why they want to bite your hands, because they don't want you to do that. So that's something else to think about. If you have a teen dog, mouthing is still fairly common at that age. They're in that social developmental stage where their adult teeth are pretty much in, but their jaws are still developing and getting stronger. And you really want to give adolescent dogs a lot of things to do with their teeth. If you're not giving them tons of foraging toys, topples and Kongs, that often helps relieve some of that. And like I say, without knowing some of the history, but so puppies will try to play bite with you, and if we don't disengage from them and they keep biting your hands, that's play for them. So you also want to look at, and I did mention, is your young dog, and I think you mentioned 6 months old. So a 6-month-old dog is not an adult and is still very much a puppy and still needs a lot of rest. And you want to look at that. You want to look at, do they get overexcited with play? Keeping play fairly calm, because that's something that you do want to grow. You don't want to grow that overexcitement, because that is essentially what you're teaching and how you're teaching your puppy to interact with you. So there's a lot of things to think about and analyze in regards to why your puppy is biting. Sometimes if we've used our hands for, like I say, just pushing a puppy away, which to us may seem not such a bad thing, but if the puppy doesn't like you pushing them away, then they may be coming for your hands too, so that you don't do that. It doesn't take much for some puppies, depending on their personality, and if they're not super confident, is some puppies get a little worried about what your hands are doing. If you've used them to get your puppy to stop grabbing them, different things like that. So, hands can become aversive really quickly. So these are just some ideas that I'm going through without actually speaking to you, but some of the things that you may also be seeing. I did suggest using 2 of the same toys. If you want to play with a toy, your puppy grabs on the toy, you let go of it right away. So don't give them a chance to grab the toy and then grab your hand. Just let go of the toy right away and then engage with the other toy in your hand, and then switch in between. So he's dropped the other toy, you pick it up and grab it. So essentially what you're doing with that play is teaching him to grab onto the toy, and you keep switching it up, and it becomes a game that they typically enjoy. So that's something that you can do to change where the mouth is going. So yes, some puppies will grab a toy and then try and work their way up the hand. But like I say, if they grab the toy, then let go of it right away, so that they don't have an opportunity to work their way up the hand, and engage the toy, the second toy, and then just keep switching. They grab the second toy, you can tell them they're good, yay, have lots of fun, and then engage the second toy. So that's how you can, because you're actually reinforcing them for engaging on the toy and not your hand now. Even though we've kind of manipulated how we're playing to get them just focusing on the mouth on the toy really quick, and reinforcing with engaging the second toy. So that's another really good thing to do. Also, keep your play session short. So if your puppy is if you're playing with them and they start getting overexcited, I think you mentioned that the zoomies start, I don't know how quickly they start. If they start quickly, then that is information for you in regards to how to keep your play session short, and so that your puppy doesn't go to the zoomies and overexcitement. And what you can do is you can take some of his kibble, and this is where it's really advantageous to use their food for training. So once you kind of watch your dog, if they're still in that zone where they're not too excited, you can stop and just throw some kibble or some treats on the ground. So now you switch their brain to something a little more calming, and they have to use their nose to find all the little pieces, and you can spread them out a little bit. So that's how you can bring them down from playing. Your dog's still young, so probably doesn't have a lot of skill set built up. Otherwise you could use other skills, but that's the easiest thing to do, is getting them redirected on something that's calming. And it's called scatter feeding. Yeah, so you may be just engaging in the play too long and too much. So you do just, it just depends on the dog. And when they're puppies, they do get excited really, really quickly. So you want to kind of keep them in the headspace where, yeah, I'm having fun, and then calm down. You don't want them going, I'm having fun, yeah, and they're going crazy right away. So you don't want to get to that point. So if you're doing that, that's great. And if you're using the sniffer mats, great. And use them more. So just keeping the session shorter. So that was really good question, and hopefully that helps. It's not a quick fix, but it should, when you're doing the toy switch, and they get reinforced, and because it's play, they should learn fairly quickly. But just changing up how you interact and play with your puppy, you'll probably see them start to learn something a little bit different. They're all different. So some puppies are a little wilder than other ones, and that's where we have to manipulate. So I always am looking at. Liam was on the screen, and he can get pretty excited, and as soon as I see that, it's just I calm him down with something that he has to focus on. My other dog's 8 years old, but she was wild when she was a puppy, so that's something that we had to practice a lot of, going from being too wild to something calm. And mat training, that is just another benefit that can be used for this this incident as well. So you can do mat training after the play session, where they have to calm down and they have to focus on an exercise, or a training exercise where they have to focus a little bit. Usually it's better to do training and then finish it off with play, and then make sure they have some rest afterwards. That's a better cycle to work with. But you definitely can do just a quick training session just to get their brain into a different gear. So you can do that, and it's nice to toggle between those two, so that they learn how to eventually, hopefully, calm down on their own. So you still have a young pup, so lots of training to do. So we are at our half-hour mark, and I'm really happy that that you joined me. So thank you, Kelly and Anita and Henrik. Hope you're feeling better. It's your arm that you hurt, right? So I invite you to register for the boundary and doorway training, even if you think your dog is okay at doorways. If anything, you can really look at how I start boundary training. And like I say, I will be working with a green adolescent. Yeah, that's ouch. That hurts. Hopefully it doesn't take long to heal, Henrik. Yeah, so she'll be green, and she's still an adolescent, even though she's over a year old, and she looks like an adult dog, but she's still very much a puppy. And I will be really interested in see how fast she catches on, and then working with the other dog. So if there's any questions, please drop it in the comments from this live. And if you're watching the this on replay, so if you can do #replay to let me know. And if you have any questions, if you have any questions as far as registering, I will post it to the group separately for the registration. Again, it's free. So I decided I was going to charge, but I decided to do this, to do the free webinar. So I'm pretty excited to work with them. And like I say, it's live, so you never know what's going to happen. And it won't be in my home. So I will be out of my element a little bit. And, and there'll be likely distractions, cats running around and who knows what else. So it'll be real life training, and it should be a lot of fun. So I hope that you will join me, and I'm really grateful that you joined me this evening. So happy that you are here. And Henrik, I hope your 2 months goes by fast and you're not in too much pain. So love seeing you all. And my great friend Anita, I think she's going to be joining as a co-host for the webinar, and she can share her great knowledge as well as we are working through the webinar. So everybody have a great evening. Stay safe, and if there's any questions, please don't hesitate to drop them. Okay? Take care.